All right, and we are back. We are here for our second literacy group, and we are reading Ronald Dahl's James and the Giant Peach. So today we are going to be picking up on chapters 21 through 39. We have with us today myself, the director, Letitia Pettiford, the passage picker, Monica Montgomery, the character sketcher, Miss Bianca Young, and our word wizard and figurative language finder, Mr. Chad Battle. So let's get started. The first question that I posed coming into the first chapter, chapter 21 and 22, really, because they were kind of short, was why do we think the insects are looking to James for all of the solutions? Like, do we believe that he had a plan? Do we believe that they had a plan had he not come aboard? Me personally, I don't feel like they had a plan as far as how to get off the hill or what they were going to do after they got off the hill. But I feel like they felt coming into this chapter that okay, he's here now. Let's start. Let's get ready to go. He has to have the plan. He has to know how to get out of here. What do you guys feel?
Well, I was looking at that too, Letitia, and at first I was like, I think it goes back to the fact that everybody, what Dahl was trying to do with James, trying to put James in that position of the hero, and everybody looking to James bolstered his confidence. His first idea was the seagulls, and at first he was like, "Oh no, it won't work." But then when they were like, "Yes, tell us what it is. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll work," it bolstered his confidence. And then towards the end of the book, we saw him taking charge, and it even used the language. He took charge of his crew. So I think that was a part of what Dahl was trying to do with that whole hero story thing. That's just my take on it.
I would agree with Monica. I think that when he arrived inside of the Peach, they were like, "Oh, you're here finally." So it's like they were waiting on someone to come in and be that person to take charge because of all the things that they had going on. It didn't seem as if they trusted one another, to be able to do it. So when he got there, it was like, "Oh, okay, here's the person who's going to lead us to, our rescue or whatever." And they were waiting on him
Mm-hmm.
to do that. Now, in the beginning, did his character say that he could?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
But we saw a drastic change in that, which we'll get into, of course. What about you, Chad?
So when I looked at this, I looked at it as a change where James actually, when he got in there, it was more like a family affair. I think all those animals represented James' family, and so even though they didn't want to really take charge, they were still there to comfort James and get him along the way. Did I think they have a plan? No, but I think that's part of the whole thing that Dahl sets you up with when he's trying to bring you into the story. He's not going to give you too much information.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, each one of those characters were like a family member he didn't have, and they were going along for the ride, and you were going to see how they became a family as one as the story went on. And that's what I got from it.
That's awesome. I like the fact that we are all on about the same page of thinking that. So we'll go on to the next page.
Okay, so as a passage picker, if everybody could turn to the end of chapter 32. So it's a part where the Peach is flying and they're spotted by the sea captain. Okay, yeah, we'll do that one. Spotted by the sea captain, and that was page 84 and 85.
Okay.
All right. So really quickly, so like Chad said, they didn't have a plan. And honestly, I don't see Dahl having a plan for this story. I think the story, just as it evolved, it did evolve, and we did see that it evolved. We saw James evolve throughout the story. But as far as the directionality of the story, it was purposefully left vague. But I was wondering as I was reading, and I don't know if anybody else had this same thought, is this a bad dream? Is this a good dream that James is having? This is his way of escaping this horrible life he's living? Or is this really happening to our fictional James? So this passage on 84 and 85, where we have this sea captain from the Queen Mary see this flying peach. And he can't believe his eyes, and he's trying to describe it to his crew. And his crew is saying that he's drunk, he's gone mad, something's wrong with him. Now, the Queen Mary is an actual ship that sailed between Britain and New York during this time. So my question is, do you think Dahl mixed fiction and nonfiction, fictional items, a fiction and a non-fictional item to anchor the story in James's reality, or was it to keep the reader guessing whether it was real for James or a dream that he was having? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I can go first. I think he does a masterful job of giving you just a little bit of reality, and then mixing in this false sense of what world are they in. So I think that Dahl does he does both. He does both, and that's just my opinion. He's going to do both. He's going to make you seem like this could really happen, and it really didn't happen, and it was very well done by Dahl. So that's basically what I got from that.
I kind of got the same gif at having read to the end of the book and realizing that this is a retell from James' perspective of the story. I felt that some of the pieces of the story sound more exciting when you're telling it to children and trying to make friends in this new city, and you've never had friends, and they're like, ooh, wow, and they're going to believe pretty much anything you say. I feel like it was pretty much added in. But that was just my perspective, having read to the end of the book and knowing that this is now just a retell of what, his perspective of what happened. Because we lose a lot of his fears going forward. And in the beginning, it was raw, with the fear. The author was very, very specific and illustrated to us through words that he was a child and he was fearful. And now it's more like an adventure.
That's nice. What do you think,
I
Bianca?
would agree.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree that, with both of you all, that mixture between the fictional and non-fictional helps to kind of paint the picture a little more. Because we're talking about a giant peach traveling, yet there are still some real life things that are there to kind of, work together. One thing that I noticed the shift in how the people were in England versus once they got to America. So like we were talking about the sea captain, and they're like, oh, he's seeing this giant peach, and people like, oh, you losing your mind. And they even said he's been on that whiskey again, like he's drunk, But the people in England were so open to it. They were paying to go see this giant peach. So it was like, that was a huge shift for me. Almost like in England, everything was fantasy, but once you started coming more towards the Americans, things became more realistic. So that was just kind of my take on it. As I was reading, it was like, oh, there's a major change there. When most people in England, when they saw the peach, it was, oh, this fantastic peach, we're gonna pay money to go see it. But then they're like, wait a minute, that looks like a bomb, or whatever. So it was just, it was weird to me how that shift, but I think it helped to bring it all together. So oh, okay. So in saying that, I have my 3 questions here. As the character sketcher, we saw a total shift in James's character. I mean, as Letitia said, he was this scared, fearful little boy, a child, and now we see this, him taking roles. So I have 2 questions here. I'm going to combine the 2. It says, what is revealed about James's character while they were traveling on the peach, and what actions do you think led to the shift in his character?
I am going to say we see a leader. We see a quick-minded little boy who is quick on his feet. He is not as fearful as we thought he was in the beginning versus now. We see a child that is very independent and has a vision. and can maintain that. So we still see the child in here because he wants to, make it to this place that he's been thinking about and daydreaming about and imagining. And no matter what it takes, we see that courage. We don't hardly see the fear in him at all. From when they were in the water and the sharks were going around and he was trying to figure out how to get out of there, to coming in contact with what they call them, the cloud army. What do they call it? Help me out. Cloud men. Just the different obstacles that he's come across. You no longer see that fear in him. You don't see. It's just like, okay, we can handle this because we know where we're heading. We can handle this. We got through the last one. We can handle this. So you see almost like not a cockiness, but like we're on the right path. Like he knows that he's going to get there. That's
right. A confidence. And I agree with Letitia in the fact that his confidence is building. I mean, and according to the text, they didn't know where they were going. They had no idea. They were just going. We didn't see a lot about James's ambitions in the beginning, other than the fact that he wanted friends, he wanted to be loved, he wanted to play with the kids on the seaside. So in these insects, he had this instant family and they were looking to him. And I think that bolstered his confidence. Having people who believed in him, having people who were calling him by name, he had a place and a space to call his own. And if you notice, Dahl made a point of referring to him as James Henry Trotter. Like from 20 on through the end, anytime he referenced and he wanted to let him know that James Henry Trotter was going to do something great, he said his full name. So what was revealed about James is that inner strength that I believe all of us have to overcome and to outgrow our fears as we push forward to having the life that we think or we want, we think is possible. That's what I got out of it.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up this question, Bianca, because as the word wizard, I had to look for different words, and the language that Dahl uses after they get in the air compared to when James started out is night and day. So let's just say this word, glinting malevolently. This is a word that I use, that I looked up, and it was like night and day, because basically that means wishing to do evil to others. James was talking in that language towards the grasshopper, not the grasshopper, but the earth, the centipede, when he wouldn't do what he needed to be doing. James started to take charge. Dahl uses very poignant and very direct language, and he used a lot of different language. James called some characters ASSs. He ended up using the A word, and again, so James started to shift from just a little boy to someone who was much more sure of himself. So that's what I got from it.
Well, that will take us straight into the word wizard and word finder. Go ahead, Battle.
Okay. All right. So I already talked about malevolently, but on page 113, I want you guys to pay attention and turn on page 113, really right before chapter 29. It says, James bawled at the centipede. Please help me. Wash off this paint. Scrape it off. Anything. I know why James said ball, but I want to know. And in the question, why did this well-mannered James have to shout out noisily at the centipede? What is your opinion on why did he go there? Because this is when he first made the shift.
Okay, so I'm looking at the sentence 113, and it says in quotation, James bawled the centipede. So the centipede is actually talking there.
Right.
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Please help me wash off this
paint,
scrape it off, or anything. So you're asking why did he say bald? Why the centipede bald?
Yes, I'm sorry. I got James and the centipede
Mixed up.
I
Okay,
mixed
yeah. So I wanted to answer the question right. I was like, okay. All right, but yes, the centipede, the entire time, we know how Dahl has written and the language that he's had the centipede use, like, coarse, harsh. He's a pest and he's independent. He caused the friction with the cloud men, and he's this and he's that. But and he wanted to seem like he didn't need anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But he was just as dependent on the group as everybody else.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And now that he is covered with paint and it's hardened and he's imprisoned, he needs help. So now the so-called strong, that mask is gone for the centipede. Bald means that he is crying his eyes out. He is begging for help. He's terrified. We've seen him afraid before, but he always came back. But bald, that means he's been reduced to a ball of sobs. So I think that was a good word for him to use.
And I also feel like Centipede got a chance to actually put himself in the position of the earthworm, because he couldn't see anything at this point. His legs were stuck together. Um, every advantage that he had on the earthworm and the glowworm, he felt like he was being, in a sense, he thought he was above them as far as statute at that point. So now, like Monica said, he had been lowered down to this level of, now I have to depend on other people. I can't see this adventure. I can't go any further without the help of somebody else. And I feel like the one person that, of course, they're all leaning to get solutions and to get answers is James. And he's like, if you could figure out everything else that we've done up until this point, I know you can get me out of this situation. And that's why I feel like this was his plea, of like, no, I really need your help at this point. It was a humbling experience in a sense.
That I totally agree with both Letitia and Monica on this. That was the perfect word to be used at that moment, because as Monica said, the centipede had this cockiness, and I don't need anybody, I'm above them. And now he is in a place of where he is just dependent on being helped. And it was funny because the earthworm was making jokes about it, because it was like, now it's my time to come back at you for all of what you've been, saying and doing to me. He was like, maybe if we pull him by, I forgot what he said, but we'll flip him inside out and he'll now have a new skin. So he got to be on the other side of all the taunting and everything that he was doing. So I think that was a perfect word that was used at that point, because now it shows his desperation. It shows and it was a hard experience. Now, I'm needing help, when before I was the one who, I was pretty much above all of y'all. Now I'm screaming for this help that I need. So I totally agree that was a good word to use at that time.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on the ball part. So we've all been the centipede in life. We've all been there. We've all been tired of other people thinking, oh, let's go, let's do this. And I think Dahl did a wonderful job of humbling that centipede, just like you two said. And that's what I got, the same thing you guys got. He did a masterful job of making him see things through other people's eyes. It ain't so fun when you can't do. So, but for my, I'm switching roles. Now I'm going to figurative language. The author uses the idiom, we are all in the same boat. I think this is a great one to just ponder about. What is meant by this statement as it relates to this whole story? We are all in the same boat, to you. I wanted to hear your opinion first.
What page was it?
Yeah, I was trying to see the page.
The context.
So I meant for the whole story. So he did use it early on, the author. James actually says we're all in the same boat. And I want you to think about it. This just relates to the whole story. What do you think it meant as just how it symbolized the whole story to you? We are all in the same boat.
Well, if I look at it from the viewpoint of the entire story, um, they were all looking for something new. So James was wanting to come off the hill. The travelers, I noticed that Doll started to call the insects. They were James and his travelers. They were looking to get off the hill, and they were all running from something. That's what I got from it. Of course, we know James was running from his mean aunts. The insects were, for some reason, they wanted to be off the hill also. I don't know if it really stated, but they were all looking for something new. So to me, that kind of leveled the field for them, saying that we're all in the same boat. No one is above the other. We're all trying to get to something, which is this new thing, whatever that new thing may be, whether it be maybe a new place, maybe it's new people, new friends, new something, but we're all on this same journey together.
Right. And I'm with Bianca 100%. Like overall, if we apply that sentiment to the entire book, like she said, everybody had a reason for getting off that hill. That hill was seen as a desolate, lonely place, a place where there was no growth. They couldn't move forward. They couldn't see life in any other perspective. So them all being in the same boat in that sense, but they also saw the peach as their vehicle to whatever this new life was. So that was the physical boat that they were in. And I remember him saying it. And at the time I don't know exactly what page it was, but I remember it's kind of one of the scenarios where everybody was kind of blaming everybody else, or saying, you'll be doing your fair share, doing what you need to do to make all of this work, because they had to make the seagulls work and all this kind of other stuff. So I think James, being the voice of reason, was reminding everybody, like, hey, we're all trying to get somewhere, so let's work together instead of fighting amongst each other, or blaming each other for different things. So that's what I got from that's my take on the sentiment if we apply it to the entire book.
My perspective, I was trying to go back and find it. I thought it might have been around like 24, 25 when they were when the earthworm and the centipede were fighting again. I thought it might have been around that section, but like my perspective is I think everybody through the whole book had a purpose on this journey. Trying to just reflect really quickly because of time. I think the grasshopper, he was the voice of reasoning and calming of everyone, like with his music. I feel like everyone had a role, but James, he was the navigator and leader. Centipede, he talked a lot of noise and kind of kept everything stirring. But I feel like you had the spider that was weaving everything. Everybody had something to add to this journey. But when it all boiled down, individually, they would not have been able to make this journey alone. Individually, we all run into those things where you can't do it all by yourself. At some point, you're going to need some type of help or assistance, or to lean on something, someone, a spirit realm, whatever it is. And I feel like Doll is just letting us know that even though we all might be in the same position where we are right now, James, including the insects, they are all battling something, and they are all tackling this battle at the same time. No one is different. When it's all said and done, they are all stuck in this peach, traveling over the sea, trying to make it to land. And when one falls in this particular situation, they're all going to fall in this particular situation. It is no one person is going to have the upper hand over anything in this situation. So that's what I took from the content that you're pulling from, about we're all in it, we're all in the same boat, because they're all stuck in there. They're either gonna, like they said, we're gonna ride together or we and die together, pretty much.
Right. If he fell, they was all gone.
Yeah, so
that was it.
The reason I chose this idiom was because I think it did a good job of just putting a synopsis on the whole story. To me, I believe this story dealt with James' inability to have a family. And these insects ended up becoming his family. And I'm going to bring it back to family. And they acted as his family, like his aunties or his uncles would act, or his mom or his dad. They had a vested interest in James, and James had a vested interest in them to become better. And they all became better because of it. And that's basically the general gist of what I got. And it was a very beautifully done job of how Dahl used his words as well as these figurative language like the idioms to help paint the picture for you of what was going on. So that's what I got from that idiom and statement.
So, if we have time, anybody else have a question that they want to pose that will kind of wrap up the whole story or summarize the story? Any of their questions?
I actually
I,
do. I'm sorry, Bianca. You can go.
before you go, Monica, I did have one more question. I think that kind of sums things up at the end, and maybe Monica could wrap it up. But it says here in the beginning of the book, James was the saddest and loneliest little boy. That has now changed.
That is so crazy. I think we all had a question like that. My number 3 question was like the exact same thing. That's funny.
Yeah, like it gives you a description in like on the very last chapter, very last page of now who James is. So he's no longer this lonely sad boy. He now has what it is that he had been looking for the entire time. They had the little parade and all the children. All he kept wishing for in the first part of the book was to see other children, to play with other children. And now he sees way more children than he thought he would ever see in his lifetime. And so now that whole thing has flipped. He's no longer that sad little boy. He has accomplished what it is that he had been yearning for the entire time. Was he, like Chad said, he gained his family with the insects. And they all kind of played a different role. But now I get to New York City and hear those playmates that I was looking for. So that's all I wanted to add to it.
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly. And it's so funny that you said that, because my second question was, what do you think the bat was meant to represent? So like on page 120 and 121, the passage, I'll read it real quick. An hour later, just before dawn, the travelers heard a soft whooshing noise about their heads, and they glanced up and saw an immense gray bat-like creature swooping down towards them out of the dark. It circled round and round the peach, flapping its great wings slowly. Okay, so I'm gonna skip down. Oh no, I gotta say that part. Great slowly in the moonlight and starting at the travelers. Then it uttered a series of long, deep, melancholy cries and flew off again into the night. Oh, do I wish the morning would come, Miss Spider said, shivering all over. It won't be long now, James answered. Look, it's getting lighter over there already.
Can I tell you what I think it is? Can I tell you what I think it is?
Go ahead, because you remember this passage happens right before 33 when we start seeing where they're headed. So go ahead, Letitia.
I feel in my Kirk Franklin voice, it's hello fear. I really do think that it is fear coming back, because
do you think it's coming back or going away?
I think it's trying to come. I think because
look at that last line, Letitia. He said, it won't be long now, James answered. Look, it's getting lighter over there already.
I think they're trying to come up and sneak up on them. I ain't saying it's there to stay, but I don't think she gonna let them go that easy, but he's still like, he's not letting it. I think fear is building up, but I don't feel like he's gonna initiate on it. Like, I feel like it was coming to try to like swoop in and try to deter them, but he was like, nope, I see the horizon, I see where I'm headed, I see my goal, I see my mission. Don't matter what's behind me, I'm looking ahead. That's what I think.
Well, look, I'm with Letitia. When I read it, like when you brought it up, it came. I won't say as I read it, but when you just said it, the first thing I thought of was weeping may endure for a night,
Come on.
but joy
It's
comes in
over
the
there.
morning.
Come
So,
on.
so when he was like, when morning time comes, like, and it goes back to the beginning of the book too, when it said at nighttime, children weren't out at night. They were scared of the dark. They saw things, they heard things or whatever. Like this was that fear in the dark. However, I know just over on the other side, I can see that joy, I can see the light
Yes.
or whatever. So that's what I was thinking, like, oh, it tried me, but I'm still focusing on what's ahead. That's what I
I
got from it.
I totally I agree in a sense, in a major sense, that we all go through this every day.
Yeah.
Through this program, we see things. We see that bat flying over our head, and we like, oh no, and then we wanna get down, but we know
Yeah.
it'll be all right in the morning.
Right. We want to do a Miss Spider and say, oh.
So yeah, I totally agree, guys.
Yeah.
That bat just represented what will happen. It will happen. It will come, and it comes and goes. It's just a reminder.
Yes. Yes. So
So,
I guess that is a great way to wrap up the end of this book. For this to be our first literary circle, I think we killed it. We can drop the book now. For our chat and chew, I feel like we had a great time. I think we covered and dissected every ounce of this book that we could for an eighth grade text during this pandemic. But I want to thank everyone for taking the time and pulling into this and joining us for our second now, chat and chew with Round All, James and the Giant Peach.